You know, there are moments in life when the noise inside you suddenly stops. Not because the world became quiet, but because your soul finally took a breath it didn't know it had been holding. I've lived long enough to know the difference between the noise you hear and the noise you carry. And for years, maybe decades, I carried a noise that success couldn't silence, blessings couldn't soothe, and achievements couldn't bury. I thought I knew peace. I thought I owned it, earned it, mastered it. But peace is not a trophy. Peace is not applause. Peace is not the world calling your name. And one day, I realized that the life I built on the outside had outrun the life I neglected on the inside. I didn't plan to learn anything new. I didn't expect to have my heart flipped inside out or to stand in front of something that felt older than time itself. If you had told me years ago that a place I never grew up hearing about, a place I never imagined visiting, would one day feel like a mirror pressed against my soul, I wouldn't have believed you, not for a second. But life has a way of humbling even the most stubborn heart. And the moment my feet touched the ground of Mecca, the moment the air wrapped itself around me like an ancient whisper, I felt something shift inside me, something I didn't know was waiting to be awakened. I didn't walk into that land as someone searching for religion. I walked in as someone searching for relief, for clarity, for meaning. And sometimes when your soul is hungry enough, it recognizes food, even in places you never expected to eat. That's what Mecca felt like, the first real meal my heart had tasted in a long, long time. It started with a question, a simple, quiet question that rose up from a place inside me I had ignored for years. Why does my heart feel heavy? Even though my life looks full, I had everything that should have made me fulfilled, everything people dream of. But dreams and peace aren't always the same thing. There's a difference between sleeping and resting, a difference between having blessings and having purpose. And somewhere along the way, I lost track of that difference. I met people, good people, who had taken the journey to Mecca. Their voices became children again, soft and full of wonder. Their eyes gained a shine you couldn't manufacture, even if you tried. When I asked them what they felt there, they never answered me with details. They never described buildings or rituals or sites. They all said the same thing in different words. You don't see anything. You feel everything. And that answer stayed with me. It sat in my chest like a tiny spark. I didn't know it then, but that spark would ignite a fire that would change the way I understood myself, my life, and the world around me. When I first approached the Kaaba, it wasn't the structure that struck me, it was the silence around it. Not an empty silence, but a living one. It felt like the air was listening, like time had slowed down just so you could hear your own heartbeat a little clearer. Thousands of people, millions even, moving in perfect unison around one center, one direction, one purpose. No status, no titles, no wealth to separate one person from another. Everyone dressed the same simple way. Everyone stripped of ego, stripped of identity, stripped of everything except sincerity. It wasn't just humbling, it was leveling. It was like God himself had placed a reset button in the middle of the earth. And when I looked at that ancient structure, older than my lineage, older than my understanding, older than the noise I carried, I felt something inside me unclench. It felt like the oldest truth I'd ever encountered, like the world had been rotating around this one point my entire life, and I just hadn't realized it. I had never been in a place where peace didn't come from escape, but from surrender. Then I went to Madina, and if Mecca shook my soul awake, Madina held it in its hands. If Mecca was a storm of sacred awe, Madina was the calm after it. Walking through that city felt like walking through mercy itself. The air felt gentle. The light felt softer. Even the footsteps of people felt quieter, not in volume, but in intention. This was the resting place of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And even though I wasn't a Muslim, I felt a respect rising in me that was too pure to deny. You don't need to belong to a faith to recognize goodness. You don't need to be raised in a tradition to feel truth. Some things resonate not because you're taught to feel them, but because your soul naturally recognizes what's real. In Madina, I learned something I didn't expect. Peace doesn't shout. Peace whispers. Peace doesn't force itself onto your life. It waits for you to slow down enough to notice it. And I realized I had never learned how to be still. I had never allowed silence to be my teacher. I was always running, chasing, proving, surviving. It took a city built on mercy to show me what I had been ignoring. And one night, lying awake in my room in Mecca, the call to prayer echoed through the streets. That sound, that hauntingly beautiful sound, didn't feel like an announcement. It felt like an invitation, a reminder, a gentle tap on the heart saying, you are more than what you're fighting. You are more than what you fear. Come back to what matters. I felt regret, not regret for the life I lived, but regret for the parts of myself I had never nurtured. Why had I run from stillness? Why had I filled my life with so much noise? Why did peace feel like a stranger when it should have been home? Islam taught me something without ever trying to teach me anything. The world tells you to chase everything. Islam teaches you to return to one thing. The world tells you to polish your image. Islam teaches you to purify your soul. The world tells you to hold tight. Islam teaches you to let go. And that hit me harder than I expected because I realized something painfully honest. I had spent so much of my life trying to control everything that I forgot how to trust anything. I forgot how to breathe without planning, how to feel without filtering, how to live without performing. But in Mecca and Medina, you don't perform, you don't pretend, you don't hide, you just exist. And for the first time in a long time, existing was enough. What struck me even more was the humanity I saw there, the kindness, the unity. In Medina, strangers offered strangers food, not out of charity, but out of joy. In Mecca, old men helped young men adjust their garments. Women prayed shoulder to shoulder with women they had never met. Tears flowed freely. Forgiveness felt plentiful. It felt like the world was finally operating the way it was designed, with compassion, humility, and purpose. I watched a man wheel his elderly mother in a chair around the Kaaba, his arms trembling, sweat on his forehead, tears falling from his eyes. And I thought, when was the last time I loved someone with that kind of sincerity? I saw a young boy holding his father's hand, guiding him through the crowd with the gentlest grip, as if he were carrying something fragile and precious. I saw people pray with hearts I could feel even without knowing their language. It made me realize that humanity isn't broken. Ego is. Compassion isn't missing. Pride just speaks louder. Love still exists. It's just buried under fear and noise and distraction. But in these sacred cities, all that falls away. You see the raw, unfiltered version of people, the version closest to the truth of who they are. And I left with lines etched into my heart, lines I didn't write but felt. Peace isn't found in a place. It's found in a posture. The heart becomes heavy when it forgets who it's returning to. Humility isn't weakness. It's the doorway to clarity. These weren't quotes. They were realizations born from the stillness I found there. When I boarded that plane home, I wasn't carrying souvenirs. I was carrying something far more valuable, a quieter heart, a lighter mind, a deeper sense of gratitude. I didn't feel like I had visited a location. I felt like I had returned to something I didn't even know I lost, something ancient, something pure. God invites people in different ways, some through hardship, some through love, some through questions they can't ignore, some through journeys they never planned to take. And I realized my journey wasn't about sightseeing. It was about soul seeing. I saw myself more clearly in those cities than I ever had in the mirror. Mecca awakened me. Medina softened me. Islam taught me how to see. And as the plane took off, I whispered something my heart had never said before, yet felt strangely familiar. Lord, keep my heart facing you. Because once your soul tastes real peace, real God-centered peace, nothing else tastes the same. Nothing else satisfies. Nothing else fits. If there's one thing my journey taught me, it's this. Sometimes God doesn't take you somewhere to show you the world. He takes you somewhere to show you yourself. And that is a gift you carry long after your footsteps leave the ground. And in that understanding, there is silence, a silence that isn't empty, a silence that heals, a silence that feels like the beginning of peace.